All right, so similar figures. Let's start with the definition of what is a similar figure. So a similar figure is, they are figures that have the same shape, but not the same size. So they're figures that have the same shape but not the same size. Okay, and then the first thing that we need to really pay attention to is, what is a corresponding sides? Corresponding sides are going to be crucial when solving for figure or similar figures. So corresponding sides, they are sides of two or more similar shapes in the same or relative position. So when I'm looking at a similar figure, I'm looking at the sides, and I want to find the sides that are the same. They're in the same position, because sometimes the shapes will be rotated, so we have to make sure that we're labeling and identifying the corresponding sides first. And then corresponding angles are angles of two or more similar shapes in the same or relative position. So corresponding angles are angles of two or more similar shapes in the same or relative position. So once we've identified that the shapes are similar, we need to find their corresponding sides and their corresponding angles. Okay. Now let's move on to the steps. And once you flip over to where the steps are, you'll see at the top it gives us a proportion. Big over little is equal to big over little. If we keep that in mind when we're setting up our proportions to solve for similar figures, we're going to start solving it exactly the same. So we want our big sides over the little sides, always. It'll keep it organized for us. So the steps when solving similar figures, the first thing is we're going to identify the corresponding sides. So we're going to identify the corresponding sides. Then we are going to set up the proportion. Set up the proportion. We're going to solve by cross multiplying and dividing. And then the last step is really important. After we have identified the corresponding sides, set up the proportion, then cross multiplying and dividing, we need to go back and reread the question. To make sure we've answered what we are looking for. Because sometimes we're not just looking for the missing side or the missing angle. Sometimes we're looking for the perimeter, or we're looking for different items. It's not always just looking for the missing side. Okay. All right, now let's actually get to solving. So if we're looking at triangles, the first one says, in triangle JKL, J is 45 degrees and L is 60 degrees. So right there, we're going to go ahead and tell us that our angle J is 45 and our angle L is 60 degrees. PQR is similar to JKL. What is the measure of Q? So we're trying to find this missing angle right here. Well, if our angles are similar, because they're corresponding, we need to make sure that we're identifying those corresponding angles. So angle J is in the same position, because they're not rotated, as angle P, which means P is 45 degrees. Angle L is in the same position as angle R, so it is 60 degrees. Now we have to figure out what is angle Q. Well, we have to first figure out how many degrees are in a triangle. Can anybody online tell me how many degrees are in a triangle? What do all the triangle angles add up to? Okay, and I have somebody in the chat that said it equals 180 degrees. Yes, it does equal 180 degrees. So all the angles have to add up to 180. So we're going to add up what we know. Well, we know that 60 and 45 are two of my angles, which equals 105. We're going to subtract that from 180, which gives me 75 degrees. So this missing angle right here is 75 degrees. And that is our answer for that one. Okay. Now, there's one little mistake on the foldable that I thought I had corrected, and apparently I didn't. And that's the way this line is drawn on our shape. So we're going to go and fix it real quick. So this triangle should have gone like this. Okay. So that's how that triangle should have gone. Okay. So now it says solve for the missing side length. Well, we have to identify the corresponding sides first. So by doing that, if we look, our shapes are rotated. They're not positioned the same. So I'm going to look at where my 90-degree angle is. So my 90-degree angle is right here, and my 90-degree angle is right here. Now we can position, if I'm looking at the position of this 90-degree angle from J to K, or from J to L, my 90-degree angle is on the left. So I need to put my 90-degree angle on the left here. So if I rotate it, that means from D to F is the same. So you can either highlight it, or we can make a little mark, a star. You can put a little line saying that this is the same as this one, which is typically how you're going to see it on a test. Okay, now by doing that, I can figure out what sides match. So the angle that is connected to angle J is from J to K. So from J to K, that is the same as D to E. Okay. And then from K to L is the same as E to F. So now I can say that KL corresponds KL to EF. I can say that K to J corresponds to ED. And I can say that J to L corresponds to DF. And now we're looking for this missing side right here. Well, if you remember when we were talking about the steps, we're using the proportion big over little is equal to big over little. So we need to pick two of the sides to use. Well, one of the sides that we have to use is the X. Well, the X is on one of our bigs. So we're going to put the X on the top. And we're going to look for the side that it matches, which we already said it matches this side down here, which is J to L, and it is equal to 4 centimeters. So we're going to put the 4 underneath the X. Now I can pick any one of the other sides. So let's pick D to E. So D to E is 12. And it is in the same position as K to J, which is 6. Now we're going to cross multiply and divide. So we have 12 times 4 is 48. And we're going to divide that by 6. And 48 divided by 6 gives me 8. So X is equal to 8 centimeters. Okay, let's try another one. Now the second one, the shapes are not rotated, so it makes it a little bit easier to identify the corresponding sides. So if we look, we have GH is in the same spot as TS. HJ is in the same spot as SR. And then G to J is in the same spot as TR. Okay, so now we've identified the corresponding sides. We need to set up our proportion. Well, we're looking for x, so remember it is big over little, is equal to the big over little. And x is on our big shape, so x is going to go on top. And it matches the 6, so the 6 has to go on the bottom. And now we can pick either one of the other sides. So let's go with 15. So 15 is in the same spot as 10. So now we have x over 6 is equal to 15 over 10. Cross multiply. 6 times 15 gives me 90. Then we're going to divide by 10. And 90 divided by 10 gives me 9. So that means x is equal to 9 meters. Okay. All right, any questions so far? All right, let's move on then. Okay, so with quadrilaterals, it can be a little bit more tricky. So we always have to make sure that we're identifying the corresponding sides. So on this one, if we noticed, it's not only rotated, but it's also flipped. So we're gonna just start with one of the sides first. So I'm gonna look at this side right here, which is D to C. And then I'm also going to look at this little angle right here. I need to find out where that angle is as well as where this line is. Well, if I look, this angle is the same as angle L, because they are corresponding, they're the same shape, or they're the same angle. Excuse me. So that means that this side is also my longest side, and this bottom is my longest bottom over here. So those are the same. Now's where it gets a little bit tricky. So I'm going to go parallel to that corresponding side and identify the parallel side to that one. Now's where I have to pay attention to where the angle is, because if I look, the angles are on different sides. So I'm going to rotate my shape, and I have D to C's on the bottom with my angle on the left. So I want to see where that line is over here. Well, it's going to be kind of hard to tell because I can't flip my paper upside down and still be able to see, because now my angle's on the right. And it really needs to be on the left side, but if I flip the paper over, you can't see it. So my angle that is corresponding to D is angle L, and we want that on the left side. Well, the only way to get that on the left side is if I were to flip my paper. So these two lines are the same, which means that this line and this line are the same. So when we're dealing with four sides, you kind of have to pay attention to the angles as well, because sometimes they've rotated and flipped them over. So now we can look at what our corresponding sides are. So we have AB corresponds to, so AB is my orange one, which we said is JK. Now we have BC, which BC is my blue line, which is the same as JM. And then DC is my green line, which is the same as ML. And then AD is the yellow line, which corresponds to KL. Okay. So really, really pay attention whenever you have shapes that look like that, because you have to look at the angles also. And if you don't have the right angles or the right corresponding sides, it's going to mess up your answer. Okay, so let's look at the example. The example is just two similar rectangles. So this side is corresponding to this side. And then this side is corresponding to this side. So remember, we're putting the big shape over the little shape and setting it equal to the big shape over the little shape. So when my side is 16 on the big, it corresponds to the 10 on the little. Or on the 9 for the big side, it corresponds to the X on the little side. Now we're going to cross multiply. 9 times 10 gives me 90. We're going to divide that by 16. So 90 divided by 16. 16 goes into 95 times, which is 80. There's 10 left over. We're going to add a decimal, bring down a 0. 16 goes into 100. Excuse me. 16 goes into 100 6 times, which is 96. Add another 0. 16 goes into 40 2 times, which is 32. Add another 0. 16 goes into 80 5 times. So that means X is equal to 5.625. Okay. All right. Let's try a word problem. Which my paper is stapled kind of funky. All right, so we use similar figures with word problems that actually kind of lead into scale factor. So the first one says Scott is 6 feet tall and casts a shadow that is 15 feet long. Okay, so I'm going to draw a person. And he is 6 feet tall. And his shadow is 15 feet. At the same time, a tree casts a 120 feet shadow. So here we have a tree, and his shadow is 120 feet. Now we're going to pretend that these make a triangle. So now we're comparing two similar triangles. And we're looking for how tall is the tree. Well, if we look, the big is X, because he's our bigger triangle. And he is the same spot as the 6, which is our little. And then our big is 120, when our small is 15. So we're going to cross multiply 120 times 6, which gives me 720, and we're going to divide that by 15 of 12 inches. So here is Victoria. And she's 30 inches tall, and her shadow is 12 inches. At the same time, her teddy bear there's my little teddy bear, is 9 inches for her shadow, but we don't know how tall her teddy bear is. So once again, we're going to create the triangles. And we have big over little, so 30 over X, because when she is 30, her corresponding side is X, and big is 12 when little is 9. Cross multiply. 30 times 9 is 270, and we're going to divide that by 12. Excuse me. And we get 22.5 inches. So she's got a pretty big teddy bear. So X is equal to 22.5 inches. Okay. All right. Michael is standing next to a flagpole. Michael is 5 feet tall and casts a 6-foot shadow. So we've got a flagpole, and we have Michael. Okay, so his shadow is 6 feet, and he is 5 feet. The flagpole cast a 30-foot shadow, and we're looking for how tall it is. Okay, so our flagpole's the big, so he is the X. When X is the height, my little height is 5. My shadow is 30 when my shadow is 6. Cross multiply 30 times 5 gives me 150, then divide by 6. When I do that, I get X is equal to 25 feet. So the flagpole is 25 feet tall. And then our last one says, in a backyard, a plot of land that is 5 yards by 8 yards is used to grow tomatoes. The homeowner wants to decrease this plot to 4 yards by 6 yards. Will the new plot be similar to the original? Why or why not? So let's first draw our original plot. And it is 5 yards by 8 yards. And we want to reduce it to 4 yards by 6 yards. And we want to know if these are similar. So remember, it's big over little. So 5 is in the same spot as the 4 is equal to 8 over the 6. And we want to see if these are proportionate. So remember back when we were talking about proportions, if we cross multiply, in order to know if they are proportional, they should equal the same thing when we cross multiply. So 4 times 8 gives me 32. 5 times 6 gives me 30. They are not the same, so they're not proportional. We can also simplify 8/6 to 3/4, which is not the same as not 3/4, 4/3, which is not the same as 5/4. Okay, so they are not equivalent, which means they're not proportional.